Picture this. You're standing in a pasture on a sunny day. All of your senses are stimulated by the view you see, the fresh forage you smell, and the sound of grass rustling as a slight breeze rushes past you. There are cattle all around you munching on grass. Peaceful, isn't it? This is what most people imagine when they think of cattle. But working in the veterinary industry, I've gotten a whole different picture of cattle's role in this world. I'm here today to explain to you a detrimental disease facing the cattle industry. That disease is called acidosis. This is an extremely important aspect of the cattle industry as acidosis continues to take beef out of our meat supply. We do not want to risk a shortage of beef in the years to come. I've worked my entire life and I've worked with cattle my entire life and I've gotten a lot of first-hand experience with not only diagnosing but treating acidosis in the field. I've also been accepted into veterinary school where I intend to work every day to combat this disease. We will now dive in and talk about what causes acidosis as well as the symptoms of acidosis, but first, we need to understand what exactly this disease is. According to an article entitled Rumen Acidosis, acidosis is a metabolic disease of cattle and is said to occur when the pH of the rumen falls to less than 5.5 on the pH scale that goes from 1 to 14. First, though, it's important to understand the anatomy of cattle and that the rumen is only one of 4 chambers of the stomach. The reticulum, which is the first chamber, functions to break down large food particles into smaller food particles. The rumen, which is the second chamber, its role in digestion is to mix the food pieces from the reticulum with chemicals in order to break them all the way down. The omasum is the next chamber that adds water to the food mixture from the rumen to help with digestion. And then lastly, the abomasum starts to absorb the vital nutrients from the food ingested to be utilized by the animal in growth, development, and gain. Acidosis only occurs in the rumen though, and this is because it is the chamber of the stomach that is the site of chemical addition. The addition of chemicals by the rumen balances the acid produced in the process of breaking down food. Now that we know what acidosis is, we could talk about what acidosis is caused by. Acidosis is caused by an abnormally high amount of lactic acid production by the bacteria that live and work in the rumen. Acid is produced in the breakdown of food. This causes a rapid decrease in the ruminal pH. The production of lactic acid also creates gas at an increased rate. When acidosis occurs, gas is produced in such a large amount that it causes the rumen wall to expand and push on vital respiratory organs, such as the diaphragm, the lungs, and the esophagus. Built-up gas must be released very quickly, or suffocation is likely to occur. Acidosis typically occurs in a feedlot setting, according to the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development. Feedlots are the last stage of beef production, where cattle are fed concentrate diets, or diets that are high in grains, such as corn. These diets add muscle and fat to improve taste and tenderness of the cuts of beef. Grain ingestion causes more acid production, though, and when fed in high enough amounts causes acidosis, which is also called grain overload for this reason. Time is needed to replace grain for roughage in a feedlot diet compared to the diet that was fed before the cattle entered the feedlot that was high in roughage, such as silage, corn stalks, or hay. So we know what acidosis is caused by and what causes it, but how do we know if a cow is suffering from acidosis? There are both short-term and long-term symptoms of this disease in cattle. Short-term symptoms are typically external. Pictured here is an acidotic bolt retrieved from the beef site. You will notice an enlarged left side of his abdomen, which is our right side. This is due to the production of gas from acid production when this bull is digesting the grain in his diet. Because the rumen is positioned on the left side of cattle's abdomen, the left side is usually bloated in animals suffering from acidosis as the rumen expands from gas. Acidosis is also seen by reduced feed intake. The low pH slows nutrient absorption, so cattle feel full and stop eating as much. This is bad for production, as reduced feed intake slows rate of gain and puts these cattle behind schedule for reaching market weights for slaughter. Long-term symptoms are usually internal and are not noticed until slaughter. The most common long-term symptom is liver abscesses, as pictured here from Elanco Animal Health. Liver abscesses occur when the low pH causes small holes to form in the ruminal wall. The bacteria that reside in the rumen escape through these holes, travel through the bloodstream, and reside on the liver of these animals for the lifetime of that cow. The meat around these colonies cannot be eaten, it is wasted because it has to be thrown away. The top is a normal liver. The middle is a slightly affected liver that has 2 bacterial colonies on it, and the bottom is a severely affected liver, and most of that cattle's meat would have to be thrown away. Now that we know more about acidosis, what it is caused by, and the specific symptoms, it is important to note why having knowledge of this disease is vital for our beef industry. A knowledge of how a diet can affect the health of cattle is important in avoiding or lessening the occurrence of this disease. Other common practices for mitigating acidosis, according to a study published by the Scientific World Journal, include supplementing diets with ruminal buffers, probiotics, organic acids, and certain plant products to retain proper floral health. Also, knowing the first signs of acidosis and having well-trained employees to identify cattle suffering from acidosis right away will be beneficial to any cattle operation, as they can alert veterinarians to the problem and allow them to treat this cattle quicker. And knowing what acidosis is caused by and the signs that it is affecting an animal, the loss of many cattle can be avoided. This will result in more beef being put onto shelves in stores and being made available for consumers to buy, eat, and enjoy without fear of running out. I encourage you to educate yourself even more on acidosis and other detrimental diseases in cattle, and share this information with whoever you think will benefit from it. MERCVetManual.com is a great resource to use for this. Now, the next time you look at a picture of cattle or see a group of cattle out in a field as you drive by, think about how important these animals are in feeding our massive population of the world, and the critical role cattle producers and veterinarians play in adding to our food supply. It will give you a newfound respect for the agricultural industry.